I never thought a birthday could feel so strange. Most people look forward to their birthdays, counting down the days, imagining cake, presents, laughter, and maybe a few surprises. But that year, everything I imagined got turned upside down. My name is Lily Anderson, and I had just turned 17. 17 is supposed to be magical, or at least memorable in a good way, right? For me, it became unforgettable, but not for reasons anyone would wish for. It started in the morning when the sunlight spilled through my bedroom window like it had no idea what the day held. I could hear faint noises from downstairs, laughter, clinking glasses, and my mom's voice, which had always been sharp but now carried a tone I couldn't quite place. I tried to shake off the unease and tell myself it was just my imagination. After all, birthdays are meant for joy. Downstairs, the living room looked like a magazine ad for celebrations. Balloons in pastel shades floated everywhere, a banner reading, "Happy Birthday, Lily," stretched across the wall, and a table groaned under the weight of cakes, pastries, and all the food I loved. Guests were arriving in waves, neighbors, distant relatives, even a few of my school friends I barely knew. Everyone smiled when they saw me, but there was something in their smiles that made my stomach twist. It wasn't mockery, it was curiosity. Mom came out of the kitchen with her usual poise, a fake smile plastered across her face. She hugged me, gave me the obligatory birthday speech, and then turned her attention to the guests. That's when it happened. "Lily, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "we never really loved you." Time seemed to freeze. I could hear my own heartbeat, each thump echoing in my ears. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me, some wide in shock, some frowning in confusion. I felt a strange mix of disbelief and calm. I smiled, not the trembling, scared kind of smile, but a soft, controlled smile. "Thank you," I said. The room went silent. I don't think anyone expected that. They probably expected tears, an argument, or at least a stammering reply. But I had spent 17 years learning how to hold myself together, no matter what words were thrown at me. And this was nothing new. Not really. My mind drifted back to my childhood, to the little moments that had prepared me for this. The times when birthdays passed without mention. The times when my achievements were ignored or dismissed. The countless nights I cried silently in my room because love, real love, had always felt just out of reach. Those memories didn't sting as much anymore. They were like old bruises faded, but a reminder of how strong I had become. Even as the room remained tense, I kept smiling. I wanted everyone to know. Their words didn't define me. Their opinions didn't control me. And most importantly, my happiness wasn't up for debate. One of my friends, Emily, nudged me gently. Her eyes were wide, and I could see the question forming there. "Are you okay?" I nodded subtly, still smiling, and she gave me a tiny, reassuring squeeze of my hand. That little gesture reminded me that while some people may not give love, there are others who do, even in the smallest ways. The rest of the party carried on, though the air was different now. Conversations were quieter, laughter more cautious. I noticed my mom staring at me, a mix of frustration and confusion in her eyes. I ignored it. This was my day, after all, and I wasn't going to let anyone steal my peace. I moved toward the cake, took a deep breath, and made my wish silently. I didn't wish for my mother's approval or for her to suddenly change. I wished for something stronger, something that belonged to me. The courage to live life on my terms, without needing validation from those who never truly cared. As I blew out the candles, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. For years, I had sought love in places it didn't exist. Now, I was learning that sometimes the greatest love you can find is the one you give yourself. And maybe that's why, despite the humiliation, despite the shock, I could smile. Because this wasn't the end of me, it was the beginning of something entirely new. And that's how my 17th birthday started, with a shocking declaration from my mom in front of everyone, 30 witnesses to my life unfolding. I smiled, they stared, and for the first time, I felt free. After my mom's words, the party didn't stop. Somehow, the world kept spinning even when I felt like it had paused entirely. People murmured behind their hands, exchanged awkward glances, and shuffled their feet. I could hear whispers, some sympathetic, some confused, some clearly judgmental. But I kept smiling. Smiling had become my armor, my shield against the chaos of other people's opinions. I moved slowly toward the buffet table, my plate in hand, trying to act like everything was normal. I overheard a cousin whisper, "Did she just say that? Can you believe it?" I shrugged subtly. Not because I didn't care, but because showing shock would have given them power over me. They were all expecting tears or a meltdown, a dramatic scene that could dominate the rest of the party. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Emily stayed close, whispering reassuring words in my ear. "You're handling this so well, Lily. Don't let them get to you." Her voice was soft, almost afraid of being overheard by my mom. I gave her a grateful nod, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of warmth. Emily had been my friend since middle school, and even though our lives had taken different paths recently, she still understood me in a way few people did. I focused on small, safe things. The smell of the chocolate cake, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the pattern of sunlight falling across the living room floor. It was grounding, reminding me that life wasn't just about the people who hurt you, it was about finding pieces of joy wherever you could. Then my mom started pacing in the corner of the room. I noticed her lips moving, but I couldn't hear the words over the soft chatter of the guests. I guessed she was muttering something to herself, probably angry that her performance hadn't had the effect she wanted. That was when I realized my calm, my smile, was throwing her off balance. I had always been the quiet, obedient one, the good child who rarely caused a scene. Now, I was showing her that words could be powerless when met with confidence instead of fear. Aunt Marlene, who had always been a bit dramatic, came over and patted my shoulder. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice low and hurried. That was unexpected. I nodded politely, and for the first time that day, I felt a tiny surge of connection not from my mom, but from someone who cared. It made me realize how much I'd learned to navigate this world on my own, seeking support where it truly existed. I glanced around the room. Some guests had left quietly, probably not wanting to stay after what had happened. Others lingered, unsure of how to act. It was like everyone had entered a strange, unspoken agreement. Pretend this didn't happen, or risk being drawn into the tension. But I didn't have to pretend. I had already faced it. Then something even stranger happened. One of the younger cousins, maybe 10 years old, tugged on my sleeve. "Lily, are you okay?" Their eyes were wide and sincere, full of a kind of innocence adults often lose. I knelt down, giving them a warm smile. "I'm okay," I said softly. "Really?" The relief in their face was immediate, as if they were happy that someone could face the harshness of the world without breaking. It was a small, ordinary moment, but it reminded me that strength wasn't just about hiding feelings or putting on a brave face. Strength was about facing reality and still finding space for kindness, connection, and even joy. As the afternoon wore on, I moved around the room, chatting politely with relatives I barely knew. Some asked about school, others about hobbies, and a few awkwardly tried to discuss the incident my mom had caused. I deflected smoothly, smiling and changing the subject. By the time the cake was ready for cutting, I realized that I had survived the storm, not by fighting it, not by lashing out, but by remaining calm and composed in the face of chaos. When it was finally time to blow out the candles again, I made another silent wish, this time not about courage or self-love. I wished for clarity, for guidance in understanding my family and my place in the world. I wished for the ability to continue standing tall, even when others tried to knock me down. And I wished that someday I could face the past without the sting of hurt, only the lessons it had taught me. By the end of the party, something had shifted. My mom didn't apologize, but her words had lost their power over me. I had claimed my space in the room, my voice in my life, and my calm in the storm. For the first time, I understood that happiness wasn't given by others, it was claimed, moment by moment, choice by choice. That birthday wasn't the joyous, carefree day I had imagined, but in a strange, unexpected way, it became one of the most important days of my life, because it showed me what I was truly capable of. I could smile in the face of cruelty. I could find peace in chaos, and most importantly, I could survive and even thrive on my own terms. If you want, I can continue with part 3, where the story deepens into Lily's relationship with her mother and how she navigates family tension after that shocking birthday. After the party wound down and guests began to leave, the room felt almost empty, yet heavy. Balloons sagged from their strings, half-eaten cake lay on the table, and the laughter and chatter that had filled the day had vanished. It was just me and my mom. Just me, and her words echoing in my head. We never loved you. I wanted to run, to escape the house and leave the tension behind, but something held me there. Something inside me told me that hiding wouldn't help me grow. I had smiled in front of 30 people. Yes, but now, I had to face her alone. And maybe, in that confrontation, I'd find some clarity. "Lily," she said, her voice quieter now, almost clipped, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Can we talk?" I studied her, keeping my expression calm, measured. There was anger in her tone, but also a hint of uncertainty. She was used to controlling the narrative, but today I had taken control. I didn't say anything immediately. Instead, I let her wait, letting the silence stretch between us. It made her uncomfortable. I could see it in the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Finally, I spoke. "Why did you say that?" Her eyes flickered. She didn't meet mine. Instead, she looked at the floor, as if the words themselves were heavier than anything she had ever carried. "Because I'm tired of pretending, tired of hiding the truth," she muttered, almost as if she was scolding herself rather than me. The truth. That word rolled around in my mind. For years, I had tried to find the truth in my family, to understand where love ended and coldness began. And now, here it was laid bare in the middle of my birthday. My first instinct was to explode, to unleash all the pain that had accumulated over 17 years. But I didn't. I took a deep breath and reminded myself of something important. Anger would give her power, and I had no intention of handing it back. "I've heard you," I said softly. "I understand now, more than ever, that love can't be forced, and I've learned that I don't need it from anyone who can't give it honestly." Her jaw tightened. I could tell she didn't like my words. They were sharp but calm, stronger than anything she had thrown at me that afternoon. "So, you're not upset?" she asked, almost in disbelief. I tilted my head, giving her a small, honest smile. "I am upset, of course, but I'm not defeated. I've learned to survive, even without the love I expected from you." She didn't respond. Maybe she had nothing to say. Maybe she hadn't expected me to speak like this. Maybe she had underestimated me for 17 long years. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Her words, as cruel as they were, had inadvertently taught me the most valuable lesson of all. I moved closer to the window, watching the fading sunlight spill over the empty living room. The day had been full of chaos, humiliation, and shock, but it had also been full of revelation. I could see my own reflection in the glass, and I didn't recognize a victim. I recognized someone strong, someone who had faced cruelty and chosen grace over despair. Someone who had claimed her own worth without waiting for validation from anyone, not even her mother. "Mom," I said finally, breaking the silence, "I forgive you not because what you said was okay, but because I'm done letting it hurt me." She blinked. Her expression softened slightly, though I wasn't sure if it was relief, guilt, or something else entirely. "Lily, She stopped herself. Words failed her, or maybe she realized that apology alone couldn't undo 17 years of complicated emotions. I didn't push. I didn't demand affection or explanations. I simply nodded and turned away, feeling a strange sense of liberation. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. It was me taking control of my own feelings, refusing to let bitterness define my life. Later, as I sat alone in my room, I thought about the party, about the guests, about the laughter and the whispers, and most importantly, about myself. I realized that strength doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it's a smile that doesn't falter. Sometimes it's walking away from words meant to wound and claiming peace instead. I knew this was just the beginning. Life with my mom would continue to be complicated, full of moments that tested my patience and resilience. But I also knew something else. I was capable of facing it all without losing myself. I was capable of building my own happiness, my own definition of love, and my own sense of self-worth. And as I drifted off to sleep that night, I finally felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt before. The day had been harsh, unfair, and unforgettable, but I had survived it. More than that, I had learned from it. I had grown. And deep down, I knew that no words, no matter how cruel, could ever take that away from me. If you want, I can write part 4 next, where Lily begins navigating her relationship with friends, her mother, and the path toward emotional independence after the shocking birthday. The days after my birthday were quiet but heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Everyone else had moved on, laughing about little things, scrolling through photos and pretending the party had been normal. But for me, the aftermath lingered. My mom's words weren't just echoing in my mind, they were a lens through which I now saw everything, a filter that sharpened my perception of truth and pretense. I spent that morning texting Emily, trying to anchor myself in something familiar. "Hey," I typed, "thanks for today. I needed you more than I realized." Within moments, her reply appeared. "Always, Lily. You handled everything like a hero." Seriously. Her words made me smile again. It wasn't fake. It wasn't armor. It was gratitude. I realized that part of surviving isn't just protecting yourself. It's noticing those who genuinely care, even when the world seems hostile. School was the next challenge. Walking through the hallways felt like stepping into a fishbowl. Everyone staring, whispering, replaying scenes they had witnessed online or heard about through relatives. I could feel their judgment like static in the air. And yet, I held my head high. Every step was deliberate, every breath a reminder. Their opinions didn't control me. During lunch, Emily joined me at our usual spot under the oak tree outside. "You're calm," she said, raising an eyebrow. "I mean, you smiled the whole time, even with your mom humiliating you. I don't know how you did it." I shrugged, taking a sip of water. "I had to. I've learned that people will throw words at you. Some mean it, some don't. It doesn't matter if you react, they only have power if you let them." Smiling was my way of showing that I'm still me. I'm still Lily. Emily nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually really inspiring. I wish I could do that." "It's not easy," I admitted. "It takes practice. And honestly, it's a little lonely at first, but I'd rather be strong and alone than weak and controlled." After lunch, I walked through the halls alone for a while, observing classmates, teachers, and the subtle hierarchies at play. It was strange to think that just a week ago, I would have let fear or embarrassment dictate my behavior. Now, I saw that fear as a tool to navigate life, not a chain to bind me. I wasn't naive. I knew people could still judge or gossip, but I also knew I had the choice to let their words slip past, like water off a leaf. That evening, I returned home, expecting the usual tension with my mom. Surprisingly, she didn't bring up the party or her words. The silence was almost surreal. I could feel her presence, but instead of fear, I felt curiosity. What was she thinking? Did she realize that her words hadn't broken me? That I had grown stronger because of them, not weaker? I retreated to my room and started journaling, my pen flowing across the page. I wrote about the party, the guests, my mom, and my feelings. Writing had always been my refuge, but now it felt like a lifeline. I poured everything onto the paper, every fear, every realization, every tiny victory. By the time I set the pen down, the weight I had been carrying felt lighter. I had confronted the storm inside my own mind and survived. The next day, I decided to channel my energy into something constructive. I went for a long walk in the park near my house, noticing how the wind moved through the trees, how sunlight shimmered on the pond. There was a beauty in the ordinary world, a reminder that life continued, regardless of one person's cruelty. I realized that my mom's words, as painful as they were, couldn't stop me from experiencing joy, from seeking my own path. Over the next few weeks, I began to build routines that reinforced my independence and resilience. I spent more time with friends who genuinely cared, explored new hobbies I had been too hesitant to try, and even started volunteering at a local community center. Each small action reminded me that I could create love and connection outside my family if it wasn't available at home. And my relationship with my mom? It didn't magically fix itself. There were still tense moments, awkward silences, and bitter words. But I approached her differently now, not with fear, not with dependence, but with calm assertiveness. I spoke when necessary, listened when it mattered, and never allowed her cruelty to dictate my emotions. By the end of the month, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Ownership. Ownership of my feelings, my choices, and my life. I realized that true strength isn't just surviving cruelty, it's using it as fuel to grow, to understand yourself, and to decide what kind of life you want to live. Lying in bed one night, I reflected on everything that had happened. My 17th birthday hadn't been what I expected. It hadn't been filled with joy and laughter in the traditional sense. But it had given me something far more valuable: awareness, resilience, and the first real taste of emotional independence. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like someone who had survived and thrived against the odds. If you want, I can write part 5 next, which will wrap up the story with a climactic moment of self-empowerment. Lily fully stepping into her independence and